The Walking Dead games have always been a part of my childhood ever since they started coming out back in 2012, and I've absolutely loved playing through all of them. So when it ended nearly 5 years ago now, I was pretty sad, and I think a lot of us were too, because there's so much potential in the Walking Dead world that they're using that I think that there is enough material for them to make a season 5. Now, I know that this is taking place after Clementine just ended her journey, but if we look at the comics, they seem to have no problem in making a canon storyline, whether we hate it or we hate it. The story is canon, taking place after the final season, so clearly Skybound is willing to go beyond the final season in terms of stories. So, does that mean that a 5th season is out of the reach of possibilities? Honestly, I don't think so. Now, the chance of us getting one is not going to be anytime soon because The Wolf Among Us 2 is still coming out for Telltale, and then after that we have no idea. So if there was to be a Season 5, the first thing we'd have to worry about is the release date, because there's just not going to be one in the foreseeable future. Now, on one hand, obviously that sucks, but on the other, it could be the first Walking Dead game on the new Unreal Engine, and it could look really good, but it could also mean we get a bunch more choices to make in a more dynamic game than we've ever gotten in the Walking Dead games, like Season 4, Season 3, Season 2. More specifically in Season 4, where we get more gameplay options. Perhaps in Season 5 we would get more choice options similar to that of Detroit Become Human, or in the recent Telltale game that recently released, The Expanse, we get more choices. So perhaps in a Season 5 we would get the most open and dynamic choices for a Walking Dead game ever. This would have the most diversity, it would have the most options in your storytelling, and it would really tailor to how you play it. So a Season 5 would be the biggest Walking Dead game by far, and I think most of us know that. I think most of us would expect it to be the biggest, but I think if they are willing to make comics, they are willing to make another game. Now, obviously, it's not going to be off Clementine. I highly doubt it would be another Clementine game. So that's going to be a hard thing to kind of focus on, is making a new character or focusing on a new story outside of Clementine's perspective. But since it takes place in the comics, we could do a storyline based off the comics that's a what if. It could be an entirely what if scenario with your own choices from the comics, because as you guys know, this is a comic universe. This takes place in the comics of The Walking Dead. So we could see a Walking Dead what-if scenario that tried to happen in The Walking Dead Destinies but completely failed. We could see that happen in comic book form, and except have your choices matter and have Telltale dynamic gameplay and dynamic choices. We could see that happen in a Season 5 and maybe Season 6 and later. Just a bunch of games that are taking place with what if this scenario happened and what if your choices mattered. This would obviously dynamically change, but it would also be a very first of its kind. You know, The Walking Dead Destinies tried to do this, like I said, but for this to be in a Telltale game, for it to be a storyline based one, it would be a very different kind of game. It would be a different kind of Walking Dead story. And I think it would be really interesting to explore, because The Walking Dead has a lot of material, like a ton of material. As a matter of fact, a whole comic's worth of material to choose from. So you could do that and have your choices drastically change. So you could have, I don't know, Negan appears earlier, or Rick actually goes batshit crazy, or something like that, you know? Just something so obscure, but you actually control them. So imagine playing as Negan, or playing as Glenn, or playing as someone else, and you make drastically different choices and the story differs greatly. That would be crazy. That would be my dream Walking Dead game. And one that could realistically happen too, because that is something that they've tried experimenting with, and not Telltale, but another development team tried to do and utterly completely failed, but it did have a possibility of happening at one point. So does it make sense? I think it does make sense for Telltale Skybound to at least entertain the idea, especially since they've been so willing to create the comics for Clementine, and despite the fact that they are completely out of character, they are comics based after the season and still take place in the Walking Dead universe. So I think that if they did do another shot, we could see a Season 5, we could see a continuation or an entirely different storyline, or even a anthology series of some kind with Kenny, Sarita, with the entire storylines that haven't been covered. You know, the 16 months DLC that we never got. A bunch of different storylines that you could do based on what we never got to see happen. Especially the 16 months DLC, because that itself could be an entire season of what happened between the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2. Hell, we could see what happened right after they found Clementine, after Season 1. Imagine how emotional it would be to see Clementine with Omid and Krista right after Lee's death, or supposed death, that would be insane. That would be incredible. Imagine if you could make choices there that somewhat rectify season two's beginning. Maybe retcon it a little bit. I know that's reaching, but you get what I'm saying. The fact that you could have choices in between the season, it would be incredible. It would be amazing. I would love to see this happen. Just do anthology of everything that we never got to see. See what happened to Kenny after what happened to Ben, or if he was just hiding out. Show us all the cut things that never saw the light of day. Or show us Krista. What happened to Krista? You could have an entire series on Krista as the main character, have her make different choices, and at the end she can meet up with Clementine from the comics. There's a whole ton of potential here, and I really want to see them explore it, especially since multiple members from the actual development team and the voice actors and voice actresses have stated multiple times about Krista and said that Krista is still alive out there. We could see an entire game with Krista, and I would love to see it. And not just Krista either, but multiple characters we could see make an appearance. We could just see an entire anthology series. That would be a good way to go, which is what I'm proposing here. Or we could just see what happened to them. Just see the things that never saw the actual light of day. And I would love to see this happen. So that's my biggest proposal. That's what I want the most, really, is just to see what happened. But again, you could have a whole separate game with dynamic choices, what-if scenarios from the Walking Dead comics that they tried to do again, but failed utterly. We could do a lot of different things, and I really want to see this happen because Telltale makes the best Walking Dead games by far. I think everyone knows that Telltale's Walking Dead games are the best. So for them to come out and say, hey, we're making a 5th season that's not going to be based off Clementine, or it's going to be an anthology series, it's going to be based off Krista, it's going to be taking place right after season 1. We get to see what happened. We can see the 16 months DLC that takes place right after the beginning of season 2. We can see a whole lot of different things happen here. So I would love to see if they took one more shot, or at the very least took a gamble and said, yeah, you know what? We're going to revisit the Walking Dead universe. We're going to give it the most dynamic choices. We're going to use the new Unreal Engine. We're going to pack in the most dynamic options you can have. And hopefully this works out, because they need to actually make a profit off here, as Telltale is still kind of a rebuilding company at this point. So maybe not all of these things could happen, especially with The Wolf Among Us 2 taking so long to come out that we really won't know what will happen with Telltale after that. But assuming that game, it makes a profit and is as good as season 1, I really want to see, I just want to see it happen. I want to see a Walking Dead season 5 really bad, but that might just be desperation talking, because we've had the same 4 seasons for 5+ years now, and I'm slowly going insane playing the same games over and over. But that it is what it is. I would love to see a new season of content, or even just DLCs that never saw the light of day, cut content, things of that nature. I would just really love to see. Now, I'm hoping that it's not a direct continuation, but rather from a new storyline, or maybe one of the other characters, but just not Clementine's story. Clementine's story is wrapped up and done for, so we can keep her storyline with a bow in its tie. That's pretty much done. But if you want to do a new character, continue Javier's storyline maybe. Continue the war in Richmond. We could see Javier prepare for war. Maybe see him make more sacrifices. You could make a Walking Dead Saviors war game, but for Telltale, have choices in there. Hell, you could have Negan show up in the Walking Dead games. That would be incredible. That would be so cool. If we could see Negan make an appearance, obviously he can't be in there for too long, he can't really contradict the comics too much, but it would just be the coolest thing ever if Negan decided to show up in the Walking Dead game, maybe season 5, and declare war across Richmond and Delta. That would be such a cool thing to see, and it would make sense too, because he is a layered character. He's done a lot of shit. So if this was revealed to be some of the stuff that he's done, and it turns out that Javier or another group falls to him, that would be incredible. That would have a lot of implications for the future, and it would do a lot of justice to Javier and the Garcia family, who desperately need it, because they were only given one game, and the game wasn't all that great to begin with. So if we saw another game with them, but it dealt with the war, it dealt with Negan, it dealt with the Saviors, have a bunch of dynamic choices, that would be an incredible game, of course. That would be a great game. And I think it's something Telltale should aim for. But maybe Telltale's working on it right now and we don't know. But those are just all my thoughts on the actual possibility of a Season 5. A bunch of different ideas that I just came up with. And as well as what the community thinks. A Season 5 continuing with Clementine won't likely happen. But if it does happen, then start it with a different character. So I think that's what most people think, but those are just my ideas. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe. You could always view a new addition to the Dark Ops army and hit a like button as well. It always shows support. It always means a lot to me. I read all your comments, so if you have any ideas, please leave it in the comment section below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Follow my Twitter in the description if you want to see more posts from me. But thank you guys so much for watching. This is Dark Ops signing off.